these movies are just, they're crazy. But guys, 28 Years Bone Temple is the follow up to 28 Years Later. 28 Years Later being a sequel that I really enjoyed to 28 Days Later. I really enjoyed what 28 Years did and brought to this world of infected and what it meant for talking about more so, though, how humanity reacts to the circumstances at hand. And, like, I really enjoyed how the last movie did that in a really almost dreamlike stance in a way that just made you feel really almost nightmarish at times. It almost felt like you were following these characters through this mental journey as well. You're really in the POV of the characters struggling with what was going on in mentally, like the character of Isla, who was the mom and that really had to suffer and such like that. So and this movie follows a lot of that element up, but in a very different way that I did expect in some ways, but in a way that I also enjoyed seeing how it, essentially played out. Because 28 Years Bone Temple feels so damn different. Like, this movie, it's hard to describe, like, how different it is, like, but without giving too much away, because I can't really get into the specific subtext of what makes it so different, but I would just say it, in terms of pacing, in terms of how it's executed, in terms of spoiler-free thoughts, I think it's great. I love it, but it's so different from the last movie. It's an entirely different type of film, and that's what I love about it, is because, like, Nia DaCosta herself brings such a unique voice to this film and really makes it feel lived in a different way from the last film. This one feels a little more conventional in a great way, of like cinematography being more film-like and very much still in its essence. Like, the last movie was shot on iPhone a lot of the time, and it was also shot almost in a really handheld type of way, and I think it works amazingly for that film. I love that. But this is different, like, and I think it's good for the approach this movie's taking. It's a lot more somber, a lot more melancholic at times, a lot more contemplative of what's going on with the characters mentally and what they're going on through just in their introspective thoughts. Like, I really enjoyed Ralph Fiennes coming back in this, and he was just an excellent addition, and this is where he really gets to shine. You really get him and a good taste of him in the last movie, but here he really gets to shine as this performer. It's just really open and honest and really almost empathetic, and I can't get into the exact reason why again, because it's a heavy spoiler, but I really enjoy that element of it. I also love the follow-up and what they do with the alpha in this. I thought that was also just, that is how you build on something from the last movie in a way that subverts expectations, but in also a way that makes the story more compelling. And I can't wait to talk about that in my spoiler class. But this movie, I just thought, did such a great job at diving into what the themes of the 28 Years films were. I think Nia DaCosta really had a great handle of that, and so did the writer Alex Garland, like he does for his previous films, with what is going on thematically in these stories. It's really about humanity and how they can be horrendous at times in different ways. And like in this case, dealing with subjects of religion, how belief and how faith and how different people can be affected in different ways depending on your POV of when you saw the apocalypse or experienced it, whether you were born in it, whether you were born before it. And I thought this movie just was more interested in diving into that. There's not a lot of infected action in this, and I'll say that, like, that is maybe my one, like, kind of nitpick, even though it doesn't, like, it's not my necessarily a flaw, but it is one thing where the infected kind of feel less scary in this one, but that also, without getting to spoil the thing, that goes into the themes of this movie as well, so I can't, like, I think it's an intentional thing, so it doesn't bother me as much as, like, it necessarily as a nitpick, where it's like, I admittedly, just me personally, I miss some of those scenes, like, in 28 Years, but that's why that movie's there, so, like, where the intensity is really amped up from the infected, and here it's like the humans really do that, and that's where the movie really makes up for that. The human torture in this movie is terrifying. Like, it's awful to see, and it's not fun to experience. There's no glorified way of showing it. And it's weirdly respectful, but not at the same time, and now it makes you uncomfortable. Shows you just the right amount of something that makes you want to look away from the screen, but then it also cuts away and really sticks to also reactions of other characters, and also really sells it through the acting, which I really appreciate. I think it's a good way of handling that. And I thought just the movie had a great different type of flavor from the violence in the last film, and I thought it made it all the more engrossing for that, and that was a good element to add to that. On top of, not just to mention Jack O'Connell, who, as a performer, is just completely eating up every scene he's in. Like, he really is the character that brings in this idea that, like, what would happen if you were just kind of raised at a time before the apocalypse, but then also saw stuff after? And what does that mean? How would that affect you if you were a little kid, but then you're processing the world kind of in the world before and then now fully in the world after, but you have questions because you were not really fully processed yet as a person, like that. All of that was just so fascinating to explore. This movie had a great handle on that while still dealing with tension from the Jimmy cult and all of that stuff, because that added a very fascinating element in terms of the character work. Jump scare transition, because my phone died last night, and I'm not gonna lie, I was so tired, I just went to bed, and I was like, I'll finish this video tomorrow. But anyway, continuing on from what I was saying, is that one thing about the Jimmy gang that really added a different layer to this movie is that it does feel like you get enough development with Spike, even though he's in the movie a lot less. Like, I enjoyed his presence, but he's definitely taking a backseat to the other characters in this film. But I really didn't feel like it affected his character arc at all. Actually, I think it added to it because we got time to flesh out everything around him and the world around Spike. So when we come back to Spike and check in on him, it's that much more impactful. You really sit in the moments of him being an observer in this movie, because I think that's kind of the point of it. You know, he's taken in by this gang in the last film, and now he's here, and like he's essentially working with them and learning their ways, and it's all really disturbingly scary to watch at times, because Spike is just kind of this innocent soul that got trapped in all this, and like watching him kind of digress into that is a really fascinating aspect of this movie. I do wish there were points that we got a little more focus on that, a little honing in on that character specifically. It's ironic that he's the main character of this movie, but sometimes it does feel like it cuts away a little much. But with that being said, I still love what we got in between that, in replacement of that, with the other characters, because they add so much to the world, and you wouldn't have this feeling of completion with Spike's arc unless you had the other characters get fleshed out too, like the Doctor, like Samson, who I won't spoil who that is, but definitely my favorite character in the movie, other than, of course, Jimmy Crystal, which he's not my favorite because I condone him. He's my favorite because he's fucking fascinating. The movie also has a lot of tonal jumps and shifts from the last film in terms of just in comparison. Like, there are a lot of moments in this movie that are, in my opinion, honestly really funny, but like, I feel like they're doing it on purpose. Like, is dark comedy in this film. There are moments of timing where maybe it's just the fact that a situation is so absurd that I'm laughing, but the way it executes it, you don't lose tension, and that's a really fascinating way to do that. This has some of the most original tonal balance I've seen in a movie in a long time, especially the zombie genre. Something this movie does a great job at highlighting, in my opinion, is age. Like, every character is a different age, so they do perceive the world completely differently, and I do feel like that's like a no-shit statement, but sometimes in a post-apocalypse story, it feels like everyone's having the same reaction to the world ending. Like, they just kind of know it's shit. And I like how this series shows is like, no, people have different reactions and are affected different ways, and also go about it different ways. The fact that the zombies or the infected in this movie are a lot less terrifying, but that's also adding to the point where it was like, oh, I thought it was kind of a plot hole that the blood wasn't infecting people as much in the last movie. No, they're just characters that actively know how to avoid the blood contact. That's why the people like the Jimmy Gang are so very much like agile, very much just dodging when they're attacking, because when the zombies come, they have to find a way to avoid getting infected, which makes total sense. But like, I appreciate that the movie here, especially in Bone Temple, they kind of added more attention to detail with certain sequences and moments where characters get out of a situation. You're like, how do they not get any blood on them? And here, it does a good job at framing it up to where you're like, oh, that makes sense. Very agile character, makes sense that they would escape that situation. I appreciated the attention to detail. So much more I want to talk about and say about this, but I can't without spoiling it. So I gotta wrap it up. But guys, I found 28 Years Later Bone Temple fascinating. It does exactly what I want a trilogy or any kind of franchise to do, where you have these different voices that can come in, like Nia DaCosta, who's a different director from Danny Boyle. You really feel the difference in style in this movie. It does not feel the same in pacing or energy or even framing and filming in terms of cinematography. Nothing about it feels the same as the last film in terms of just that execution of it, but thematically, the writing, the characters, all of that fits perfectly well and picks off perfectly from where the last film left off to continue us down the journey further, and I cannot wait to see what comes next. I love this franchise so far. If the third movie lands, it might be my favorite zombie franchise. If it lands, though. I'm so happy we're getting a trilogy like this, of just unique ass shit. Guys, what did you think of 28 late? What did you think of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple? Did you enjoy it? What is your favorite 28 Days movie out of the franchise? Who's your favorite character in this movie? Did you enjoy Jack O'Connell's performance too? Jimmy Crystal, man, that's villain of the year until further notice on that. We'll see if Doom can etch him out. Probably not. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time with the spoiler talk on this movie. Goodbye. Go fucking check it out. Love these movies.